Here's a truth most men don't realize. Your absence often speaks louder than your presence. When you step away, intentionally or not, a woman doesn't just shrug and move on. She feels something, sometimes confusion, sometimes curiosity, sometimes even longing. And the way she reacts in that space between your silence and her thoughts tells you more about her attraction than anything she says when you're right in front of her. Men underestimate this. They think a woman only cares when they're actively giving attention, affection, or effort. But here's the twist. It's often when you're not there that she starts to notice the gap you leave behind. Women feel your absence on a level most men don't even suspect, and it's in that absence where her true feelings start to surface. This isn't about manipulation or playing games. It's about understanding female psychology. Women are emotional beings, and emotions don't turn off just because you're not around. In fact, they often amplify. If she values you, your absence creates a spark of desire, curiosity, even a little anxiety. If she's indifferent, your absence exposes that truth too. That's why this topic matters. Because whether you realize it or not, every time you step away, you're teaching her how to feel about you. You're showing her what life looks like without your presence. And trust me, women pay attention to that. So in today's video, we're going to break this down piece by piece. I'll show you exactly what a woman feels during your absence, how her emotions shift, and why the way you carry yourself in that silence can either build attraction or kill it completely. Welcome to the channel. If you're ready to see through the female perspective and understand what really goes on in a woman's mind when you're not around, stay tuned, because this might just change the way you approach every relationship. 1. Her mind fills the silence. When you're not around, a woman's mind doesn't just sit still. Silence is rarely neutral for us. It becomes a space we immediately start trying to fill. And this is where things get interesting. See, when you pull back, or when you're simply absent, a woman doesn't just go about her day without noticing. Even if she's busy, there's always a quiet moment when she suddenly thinks, wait, why hasn't he called? Why hasn't he checked in? That gap in attention from you feels louder than anything you could have said. The truth is, women are wired to read into things. We analyze the smallest details, the way you said something, the timing of your texts, even your silence. So when you step back, her mind rushes in to make sense of it. She'll start replaying your last conversation, reading into the tone, and even questioning whether she did something wrong. And the more she thinks about it, the deeper that loop goes. Imagine this. You usually message her goodnight, but tonight you don't. She notices. She may not text you first, but you can bet she's staring at her phone, waiting for the notification. Every passing hour without your name lighting up her screen builds tension. She'll toss in bed thinking, is he busy? Is he losing interest? Or is he just pulling back on purpose? The silence makes her imagine scenarios, and most of them won't be logical. They'll be emotional. Here's what most men don't realize. Your absence forces her to think about you more, not less. She doesn't forget you when you go quiet. She obsesses over you because she's trying to understand the reason behind your distance. Women crave clarity, and when we don't get it, we fill the space with overthinking. That overthinking keeps you in her mind longer than constant attention ever could. Now, this doesn't mean you should play childish games. It's not about ignoring her just to get a reaction. It's about understanding the psychology of silence. When you create space, you give her room to feel your absence. And in that space, her thoughts become centered on you. So the next time you're not around, know this. She's not just chilling. Her mind is working overtime, running circles around the last thing you did or didn't do. And whether she admits it or not, your absence is creating an impact that attention alone could never achieve. 2. Curiosity turns into obsession. At first, when you're not around, a woman's reaction is usually curiosity. She wonders where you are, what you're doing, and why you haven't reached out. That's natural, but here's where it gets powerful for you. Curiosity rarely stays mild. If her feelings for you are real, that curiosity quickly snowballs into something much stronger: obsession. See, women don't like unanswered questions. When a man pulls back, our minds immediately start chasing answers. Why is he not texting me? Is he with someone else? Did I say something wrong? Is he losing interest? Each question pulls her deeper into thinking about you. And because you're not giving her immediate reassurance, she has no way to stop that spiral. That's how her curiosity starts turning into something she can't control. This is the strange truth most men don't realize. Women can become more emotionally invested in your absence than in your presence. When you're constantly available, there's no mystery. She knows where you stand, she knows how you feel, and there's nothing for her to figure out. But when you're not always around, her mind starts connecting dots that may not even exist. And every little silence from you becomes a puzzle she feels she has to solve. Think about how powerful that is. She's at home, maybe scrolling on her phone or hanging out with her friends, and suddenly you cross her mind. She tries to shake it off, but then the thought comes back. What is he doing right now? Why hasn't he called? That thought lingers. And the longer you stay silent, the stronger the urge becomes for her to check her phone, check your social media, or even ask people about you. This is the point where absence flips into power. Curiosity is light, it's casual. But obsession? Obsession means she's locked in on you. She starts comparing you to other men who might be showing her attention, and yet you stand out simply because you're not giving her the easy, predictable attention she's used to. That unpredictability triggers her emotions in ways you might not even realize. 3. Absence triggers comparison. One of the strongest things a woman feels during your absence is the urge to compare you with every other man around her. And here's the surprising truth. This comparison almost always works in your favor, if you're the kind of man who knows his value. When you're not present, she doesn't just miss you. She starts noticing how other men act, talk, and behave, and then measures them against the way you made her feel. If you left a strong impression, no matter how subtle, other men start to feel dull in comparison. Think about it this way. When you're always around, she doesn't have the space to recognize the difference you bring. But the moment you step back, her mind begins replaying interactions. She thinks about the way you spoke to her, the way you carried yourself, how you didn't bend over backward like so many other guys do. That memory creates a contrast. And here's the thing. Women are constantly approached by men. Some are too eager. Some are awkward. Some are overly aggressive. But when she remembers how you didn't need to try so hard, it sharpens the gap. Suddenly she realizes that other men don't quite measure up. They might be around, but they don't spark the same feeling. Absence acts like a mirror. It forces her to look at her options and recognize who really stands out. You become the standard without even being in the room. And the irony is, the more you pull back, the clearer that standard becomes. This is why women often come back to the man they couldn't figure out. Not because he chased harder, but because every time she looked elsewhere, she couldn't shake the memory of how he made her feel. The absence made her notice the difference. 4. Silence tests her confidence. When you go quiet, when your presence fades even just a little, something very specific happens inside a woman. Her confidence gets tested. And I don't mean her overall self-esteem. I'm talking about her confidence in you. See, women don't like uncertainty in relationships. We crave clarity, assurance, and validation, even if we don't openly admit it. When a man pulls back, suddenly she doesn't know where she stands with him anymore. That silence creates a gap she feels the need to fill. And whether she admits it or not, she starts questioning herself. She begins to wonder, am I still on his mind? Did I lose his interest? Was I not enough to keep his attention? And those thoughts cut into her confidence. Even the most self-assured woman will pause when the man she's drawn to is no longer flooding her with predictable attention. That pause is powerful because it shifts the dynamic. Instead of you worrying about her, she's now worrying about you. Instead of you chasing, she's suddenly chasing clarity. Now, here's the important thing. This doesn't mean she's falling apart. Women are smart. We don't always run back the second we feel insecure. But what happens internally is undeniable. Your silence forces her to question herself, to reassess, to rethink her position with you. And those questions can be uncomfortable for her, which is exactly why they're effective. 5. The longer you're gone, the more she romanticizes you. Here's something men often overlook. Time has a strange effect on memory, especially when emotions are involved. When you're absent and enough time passes, a woman doesn't just miss you, she starts romanticizing you. That means she remembers you in a way that's often more flattering than the reality. It's human psychology. Our brains tend to amplify the highlights and soften the flaws when we replay past experiences, especially in relationships. So when you're not constantly present to remind her of your imperfections, her mind does the opposite. It exaggerates your best qualities. Think about this. When she's around you all the time, she sees the small details that might bother her, your little habits, your off days, the times when you weren't your sharpest. But when you step away, those things fade. What sticks are the moments that made her feel alive, special, or deeply connected to you. Your absence creates the space for her mind to polish those moments, replay them, and turn them into something bigger than they actually were. It's why so many women end up reaching out to a man long after he thought she had moved on. She's not coming back to the exact version of you she left. She's coming back to the version of you her memory has romanticized. She's remembering the spark, the mystery, the way you made her laugh, or the way you carried yourself when she first noticed you. And by the time those memories have been replayed enough, they've grown stronger than whatever reasons she had for letting you go in the first place. Here's where this becomes powerful for men. You don't need to beg or convince her to feel this way. Her own mind does the work for you, as long as you don't chase her down or constantly remind her of your presence. The more she has to rely on memory instead of reality, the stronger the emotional pull becomes. 6. Absence separates boys from men. Here's a truth that stings for a lot of guys. Women can tell the difference between a man and a boy by the way he handles absence. And that difference? It makes all the impact in how she feels about you when you're not around. See, boys panic in silence. When she doesn't text back, when she doesn't show up, when the energy shifts, the boy reacts with fear. He floods her phone. He tries to win her back with attention. He scrambles to fix things. That behavior screams insecurity, and insecurity never fuels attraction. If anything, it kills it. Men, on the other hand, handle absence with composure. They don't rush to fill the silence. They don't break down because she's not instantly available. They understand that their value doesn't vanish just because she's not validating them at that moment. That calmness, that steady confidence, is what makes a woman lean in during absence instead of drift away. Here's why this matters. Women don't just pay attention to your words when you're around. We pay attention to how you carry yourself when you're not around. If you can disappear for a while without crumbling, it tells us that you have a backbone. It tells us that your world doesn't revolve around us, and that's exactly what makes us respect you. Now, this doesn't mean being careless. A man doesn't vanish because he's playing games. He doesn't use absence as a manipulative tactic. Instead, he uses absence as a natural reflection of his life. Because he actually has things going on. His purpose, his goals, his growth, his self-respect. Those things come first. And when a woman sees that, she feels something she doesn't feel with a boy: admiration. Absence separates boys from men because it exposes who can stand firm when there's space and who crumbles under pressure. The boy makes absence all about fear. Fear of losing her, fear of rejection, fear of not being enough. The man makes absence about strength. Strength to hold his frame, strength to keep his focus, strength to let her come to him if she chooses. 7. Silence as a power. Move. Silence is one of the most underrated tools a man can use with women. In fact, it's often more powerful than anything you could ever say. Most men get uncomfortable with silence. They rush to fill every gap in conversation, explain their actions, or justify their choices because they fear what might happen if they don't. But here's the truth. Silence, when used correctly, commands respect and amplifies attraction. Why? Because silence communicates self-control. It shows you're not desperate to be understood, nor are you seeking validation. When a woman tests you, questions you, or even accuses you, the man who stays calm and measured, who doesn't fall into the trap of over-explaining, stands out. Instead of scrambling to defend himself, he holds his ground. That silence leaves her questioning, rethinking, and often chasing clarity from him. Think about it this way. When you remain silent, you force her to sit with her own emotions. Instead of you carrying the burden of constantly reassuring her, she feels the weight of the unknown. And that unknown drives curiosity. Silence makes her wonder what you're thinking, how much you truly care, or whether she has as much control over you as she thought. Women are far more intrigued by a man who doesn't immediately reveal his hand. When you don't rush to explain or justify yourself, you communicate strength, restraint, and composure. And that composure is magnetic. Silence isn't weakness. It's dominance. It's the ability to say, I don't need to convince you of who I am. You'll see it. That subtle confidence is what keeps her respect intact and her attraction alive. The power of not explaining yourself. Brother, when you stop explaining yourself to women, you step into an entirely different level of masculinity. You stop being the man who chases validation and start being the man who commands it without asking. Every time you resist the urge to justify, defend, or overshare, you reinforce that you are confident in who you are and that you don't need anyone's approval to validate your choices. Women might not always tell you this directly, but deep down, they crave men who stand firm. A man who doesn't feel the need to explain his every move is rare. He is mysterious, grounded, and powerful. That's why silence, restraint, and presence become far more attractive than words ever could. When you stop explaining yourself, you give her space to feel curiosity. You make her think about you, question you, and even chase your attention, because you're not constantly handing yourself to her on a silver platter. You leave something for her to figure out. That mystery, that's what keeps attraction alive. So remember this. A man who over-explains is seeking permission. A man who stands firm in his decisions is giving direction. Women follow strength, not excuses. They respect certainty, not over-explanation. If you want to maintain her attraction and her respect, learn to be comfortable with silence, with mystery, and with simply being who you are without apology. That's when she sees you as the kind of man she doesn't want to lose.